Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, the world is on a different level. We are having a new phenomenon that has become very disturbing, very confusing, and it has become a real issue in our societies. This is the issue of same-sex relationships. With us tonight to discuss on the issue of same-sex relationships, we are privileged to have our sister and also a mother, Madam Mariam Kibunja. Welcome to our show.
Thank
and
you.
Also we are graced in our show with our brother, Engineer Abdulrahman Abdul Ghani. Engineer Abdulrahman Abdul Ghani, I'd like to start with you. Kindly, if you can give us the Islamic perspective of same-sex marriages. What does Islam have to say about these kind of relationships?
Bismillah wa salatu salamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When we talk about homosexuality or same-sex marriage, and people address it these days as something that is contemporary. One of the contemporary issues is homosexuality, but it's not contemporary in any way, because the Quran has addressed this, and God Almighty sent a messenger for this issue specifically in the Quran, and the story has been repeated so many times. And if we look at the Quran, there isn't a specific ruling on homosexuality. It is classified as a fahisha, and it's greater than zina according to the Quran, because zina, we've been told وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً as an adjective. But أَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ, when it was the Quran speaks about Lut and his people alayhi salam, it calls the act itself fahisha, not as an adjective but as a noun. So it is greater than fornication. It is a very grievous sin, one of the biggest sins, and God sent a messenger specifically for this act. Some people have tried to do ta'wil on some Quranic verses in chapter 4 verse 11, Surah to An-Nisa, and try to play around with the Arabic wordings, وَاللَّاتِي يَأْتِينَ الْفَاحِشَةِ, and when two ladies do fahisha together, and وَاللَّذَانِ يَأْتِيَانِ, and when two men do the same thing, then punishment is prescribed. It's not identified as any, it's not expounded upon. But these verses are not speaking about homosexuality. Homosexuality was addressed by the Prophet, peace be upon him. And he said, فَقْتُلُ الْفَاعِلَ وَالْمَفْعُولَ بِهِ, that he prescribed capital punishment, and the prescription of the Prophet is law, according to us. And the Prophet prescribed capital punishment, it's very clear. And the Sahabas, peace be upon him, also agreed that capital punishment should be, so this is the fatwa, should be, the people should be executed, the doer and the person who it is being done to, and we'll explain the reason why this is logical, why it should be capital punishment and not any other punishment. The thing that the Sahaba differed in is how the person should be executed. Some of them said he should be thrown off a cliff, some said stoning, some said banning. And mind you, banning is only in the whole Sharia. I haven't seen another place where banning is prescribed. A human being is to be banned except in this. So that shows you the gravity of the sin.
Sister Mariam, from your experience as a psychologist, we are talking about this topic because it seems that as a community, we have shied away from it, we've buried our heads in the sand. What is the situation like in the Muslim community as regards homosexuality and lesbianism?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is a topic that cuts across the board, Salim. It's not only a Muslim problem, but it's a generational problem, and it cuts across the board. It affects all children, and it is not sparing our children. Having worked in the community, I will tell you that it is growing like wildfire. And we need to sit down and have a conversation about this issue. I'll give you like girls, for example. Girls are socially accepted to hold hands and to kiss each other. And so even when they are in such a relationship, nobody would know because they are socially accepted to behave in such a way. Men are not socially accepted to hold hands. The minute they hold hands, everybody starts raising their eyebrows. So while I will accept and say that yes, the segregation is good, it has been abused to some extent. And believe you me, there is a lot of recruitment, especially in schools, especially in secondary schools, and some of our innocent children are, just get into it even without knowing where they're coming from. The other thing that I tell parents to be aware of is this thing that is called sleepovers. When it comes to sleepovers, you have girls coming to your daughter and boys coming to your sons, and they lock themselves in the bedroom and you don't know what happens. Some of these children, while we talk to them, some of these children have been recruited in such forums. So I think these are conversations that parents need to start right from the homes. We should stop burying our heads in the sand, because this is happening to us, this is happening to our children, and if we keep quiet the way we are keeping quiet, tomorrow we might not be able to control what will happen to our children.
In each and every situation, there are usually what are called the pull factors. Now, in the situation of same-sex relationships, of lesbianism and homosexuality, what are the pull factors that are inherent or that are closely related to us, yet we may not be seeing them?
One of the pull factors is curiosity. Another pull factor will be wanting to belong to a certain group. The biggest pull factor right now, and it is in every house, in every home, and parents need to raise their eyebrows, our children are watching series. I want every parent to take one series and watch it to the end. There is always a homosexual who is very good looking with beautiful morals, but is a homosexual. What are we doing? We are selling these homosexuals right in our houses to our children. So our children get to be attracted to this kind of people and to them. And by the way, as we're talking about homosexual here, homosexuality to this generation is no big deal. In fact, we speak to the children, they're like, so? I mean, it's not a big deal at all. At all.
Well, engineer, back to you. We are in Islam, everything we have an opportunity to address it, we address it through the member. What is happening that our shuyuks are not taken to the member to speak about this issue? And yet from what we are hearing is that this issue is becoming a real problem in our society.
Yes, Brother Salim, the problem is we don't have our priorities right, and when we talk about the manabir, just like my sister said, it is becoming a very big problem right now that you find an imam telling you that he is ashamed of speaking about such things, and these things are mentioned in the Quran. So we have nothing to be ashamed of. And I have a son. If I don't address my son and I don't talk to him about these things, tomorrow he's going to come to me and tell me, wal-'iyadu billah, he's going to tell me I am gay. So in order to, we have to address these issues. It's about addressing the issue. And the Ai*imma, for one reason or another, are not addressing it. Time is there. People are preaching in the masajid about ahkamul janaiz, how to shroud the dead and all this. And we have bigger issues than this that are going on. We have the problem that my sister just spoke about. Why homosexuality is such a grievous sin is because we cannot control it, we cannot curb it. If it's fornication or zina, it can be curbed by creating a separate school for ladies, separate school for avoiding intermingling, mixing. Prayer rooms are separate, everything is separate, but we cannot control, and that's why Islam prescribes the capital punishment, because it cannot be controlled in any way. You cannot, start accusing two boys who are walking together of anything, and they might be homosexuals. and the same with girls. So we have to address that. And if we don't start talking about this in the manabir, our children are going to watch them on TV. And even the cartoons these days have some gay characters. So
it's true.
And they're really portrayed well, just like the sister said. So if we don't address it, they're going to learn from other mediums.
Well, from the Sunnah, maybe you could give us examples of how our Prophet ﷺ used to address the issue of talking about sex with either the spouses or talking about sex with the children, because it seems that in most of our houses we're not speaking about it.
Well, sexuality is something that is very, natural. We should not be ashamed in any way to speak about. And we find that Muslims are very traditional. They don't want to address these things. They, the children are told this is tabia mbaya. So they never get to understand the reason why. We just have that kind of, authoritative way of telling somebody this is wrong, and that sometimes does not work. If we go to the minbar and say, homosexuality is haram and you should not come close to it without giving logical reasons, without trying to convince a person rationally, then it doesn't help. The Prophet was very, we know about his marriage life, a lot of things. The Sunnah teaches us everything about the marriage, consummation, everything. So it's not something that we should be ashamed about. The Quran is very clear as well concerning our sexual lives and how we should live as human beings. And the Quran even says that زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنِ النِّسَاءِ. It has been made pleasurable, and it has been made something that men yearn for, from what they covet from women. So that's why we say homosexuality is unnatural, because men were created for women and women were created for men. Sister
Mariam, from a family perspective, why are we not talking about the sexuality of our children?
One thing for sure is that this is a subject that we all want to shy away from. Sex is a very intimate topic, and sometimes we feel it is not, our children are not ready for that topic. But I like what Brother Abdurrahman has said. It becomes even more challenging within our community because of the segregation. We keep our girls together and we keep our boys together. So as a parent, I'm fine when my girl is with another girl, and I'm fine when my boy is with another boy, because we've been socialized to know that this sex only happens when the opposite sex, when they are married and it's opposite is the opposite sex. But it is such a taboo for us to speak about this topic, and it is a high time, I'm saying, that we need to start speaking about this conversation in our houses, and even tell our girls, even when we are telling our girls and telling our boys, that when we start telling them when they're young, we tell them, if anybody touches you here, you come and tell. We never tell them if another girl touches you. We tell them if a boy touches you here, and it's a boy, we say, it's a high time we start telling them, even another girl should not touch you here and here. These are your private parts and they belong to you alone, because the world is changing. Really, the world is changing, and we need to start this conversation. And mothers and fathers, we need to shy away. We need to stop shying away from this topic. The other problem we are having is the mobile phones. I'll give you an example. In my community work, the mobile phone is being used by children, especially by the teenager, for pornography. And there's a lot of pornography on the internet. These are the phones we have bought for these children, and we see our children locking themselves in the bedrooms. They lock themselves, and we're like, other children go to the mosque, but my child is a nice girl or is a nice boy. They don't leave the house. But one of the young people has mentioned to me, and many of them will tell you, they have phone sex in their bedrooms.
Well, it seems that's a very interesting angle that you're bringing into the whole conversation.
Yes.
And we'll be taking a break. And when we'll be back, we will indulge further into the effect of the mobile phone in the homes and what it is doing to the relationships that our children are having. Viewers, tonight we are privileged to be hosting Madam Sister Mariam Kibunja, a trained psychologist, and also Brother Engineer Abdurrahman Abdul Ghani, and we are discussing the topic of homosexuality and lesbianism in the community. Thank you.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the show. Before we took a break, we were with Sister Mariam, and Sister Mariam, you're telling us about the effect of mobile phones on the relationships that our children are having.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, and I was saying that our children use these mobile phones, and I'm saying we are the ones who buy these mobile phones. And we buy these nice ones, the smartphones, where children can, and then we have Wi-Fi's in the homes. Then they're able to download pornography. And pornography is of all types. There's pornography on homosexuality, pornography on whatever. So there's nothing our children do not know. So what I'm saying is that parents need to be careful. Parents need to watch over. When they are very quiet in the bedroom, find out what they're watching. Oh, I don't know if we can be able to regulate the kind of information that a child can download from the Wi-Fi.
There are no statistics to support most of the assertions that we are making.
Yes.
What do you think would be a better way for us to get this information out to the parents and families that, look, there is a problem and these are the statistics to support it? Where do we start? By
doing our own research. By doing our own research as Muslims. Engage the young people and let's do a research on the community and find out what statistics we're going to have. I know there's a statistics on bisexuality, and the statistics in Kenya shows that the girls are more when it comes to bisexuality than the men.
Well,
yes.
Speaking about the girls, there is a new phenomenon in town in terms of social media, and for other reasons I cannot mention one of the social media, but there's the element whereby the girls usually would post their photos and the other girls would look at them, and everybody would make a comment about the beauty of the other person and all that. Do you think that this could be one of the major contributory factors to especially lesbianism?
It might not be the major one, but it is a contributory factor. Yeah. It is a contributory factor. And the boys do the same thing as well. Even in the media, the boys do the same things as well. They will pose and send pictures to their male friends and they digress the information and the body and do what they want to do with the information. So I think it is the media is one of the areas that really needs to be looked after. And even children, even young people, even after school, they've finished college, they didn't go through this, they get into the offices, they get into big corporate offices, and to move up the corporate ladder, you have to do it. You have to be a homosexual to move up the corporate ladder.
Well, Engineer Abdurrahman, Islam is very explicit, as you have rightfully told us, yes, of what the punishment should be in such scenarios. Could this be one of the reasons why our shuyuks are shying away from this topic, because the threshold of the punishment is very high and people are thinking, well, if we now start speaking about it, we'll also be forced to speak about the punishment, which is very severe, and nobody wants to take that punishment.
Unfortunately, these days we are compromising on a lot of things just because we are afraid of having a label on us. Just because you're afraid of being labeled as homophobic or something like that. Actually, if we keep doing that, we're going to go to extremes, because we know that in the world today, people have, gone beyond homosexuality, bestiality, having, intercourse with an animal is legal in Russia, in some states, most states in the United States. So it's coming to our place as well. If we keep doing that, we keep shying away from these topics, then that is going to happen. And what I'd really suggest is that we have seminars where Muslim professionals, like my sister and psychologists, can come together and advise the youth on this and confront the issue head on. And talk about this very, very clearly, because sometimes you find, innocent individuals telling you that, I just had the feeling and you know, I am more female than I am male or something like that. But you have to explain to them in a rational way that we don't have to act upon every feeling that we have. You feel something and you do it. For example, you put your watch there and I feel the urge of stealing it. That does not make that right.
Thank you.
So we have to rationalize things. We have to give more platforms where this can be explained, not only in the mosques but also in social gatherings and events which we can plan as a Muslim community.
In the event that you have this kind of scourge in the society, what is the responsibility of the Ummah towards addressing this? Because sometimes we kind of like take it that it is not our responsibility as an Ummah. We say it's the responsibility of the leaders, of the shuyukhs, but are we all responsible over this one?
Okay, in a sense, the leaders are more responsible because they have the knowledge. They have the knowledge to share with the people, the awam, who don't know the religion. So if you find that, for example, in Kenya, and it's very unfortunate, I have to say this, that there are places which we are told homosexuality is very rampant, and you find that maybe it's an Islamic town, and you wonder why Muslims have not addressed this issue, or you even wonder why there hasn't been a symposium in such an area where people are, you know, there is awareness about homosexuality. So I just wonder why this happens. We have the time to speak about other things. Why not address the issue? Let's not even address the capital punishment if we are cowards and we are afraid of the label. Let's talk about what homosexuality is.
Well, could it be maybe it's an indictment on our part that actually we are engaged in it, and because it is us who are doing it, then we cannot talk about ourselves? Because I know of many scenarios whereby people make a lot of stupid jokes about this thing, and we make it look as if it's not really that bad. And I think you will bear me witness that this is happening all the time.
Yeah, it happens, but unfortunately, we cannot say that we are part of it. I think that will be going a notch, you know, extreme. But I can say that Muslims have deliberately tried to avoid this topic, and we have to find out why. Because especially in these places, and I've wondered, I've asked one of the my friends who is a sheikh, I've asked him, what if we can you do something there and talk about this issue, because it's an issue affecting the community, and they said if you go there you might be killed or you might be, you know, it's very serious. So we have to find a way to talk about. We find like the issue of pornography, which was just addressed. The Muslim scholars have just started to comment about it when they should have commented about it. It was an issue long ago, 10 years, 20 years ago. It was still an issue. But we are, you know, very reactive instead of being proactive. So we should address these issues and not feel shy.
Sister Mariam, where does the buck stop? Is it with the father? Is it with the mother? Is it with the uncle? Is it with the society? Or who is supposed to educate the children about their sexuality? Who is supposed to warn the children about negative sexuality and such things? Where does the buck stop?
It stops with all of us. It stops with all of us, if you ask me. And when this child is born and is of age where the child can psychologically understand some things, I think the conversation should begin then. Let the mother speak to the girl and the father speak to the boy. Because sometimes when you're a mother and you're a mother of boys like I am, I sometimes do not even understand what they feel. I'm their student because I do not understand how they feel or what happens, but a father will. So I think the father should be able to speak to the boys at an early age and the mother speak to the girls at an early age. And that's the only way, believe you me, that we will be able to bridge the gap between curing it and saving our children right from here. Let me just ask a very innocent question. And I want to ask Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman, do you think that probably the segregation, you know, keeping the boys together, has something to do, influences?
Segregation, first of all, is good
yes.
for women and men.
Yes,
but
and I believe
the
it
problem is. The problem is that when parents get too they feel secure that their girl, most of these incidents happen in boarding schools,
Yes.
and they feel secure that or safe that the girl is with another girl, even in the house, maybe they're having a sleepover and anything. And I think most parents neglect this, and they say, you know, even if it happens, my girl won't have pregnancy or anything. She won't become pregnant, even if it happens. So we're taking it lightly, just like we said, Brother Salim, and we shouldn't, because it's a very big issue, and it you know, it grows on the person when they start doing such things, and becomes worse, and it will have an effect in their marriage life and everything. So we should try and cut this at an early stage. So I think, sister, as psychologists and your colleagues, you can look at this problem and, you know, try and find a suitable way of solving it. If it's going to those schools, trying to address.
Most of our communities do have their own value systems, which they used to employ when it came to matters of sexual relationships and all that, in preparation of the young people before they went into the institution of marriage. Yes. What does Islam say about this kind of value systems?
By value systems?
Yes, value systems, that there are certain things we used to do as communities, and we used to prepare our children in a certain way before they got into marriage. And there has been talk about, you know, some of these systems may not have been Islamic and all that. What does Islam have to say about this kind of preparation?
Well, before getting married, of course, you should consult. And you should, you know, be prepared by your guardian or your parent on what you expect after being wed. And you should be physically and mentally, psychologically prepared for what you're going to do. And we get advised as Muslims on the rights of the husband and the rights of the wife. This happens before the marriage, and I think that's it. But after that, we need to have people going to professionals, having, you know, people think that you go to a marriage therapist or something only when you have problems. It doesn't go like that. You have to always go and, you know, consult them, and there are always problems here and there. Try to solve your marital issues. So Islam is very clear. We should, you know the rights of the husband and the wife, and that's it. That's all the preparation you need to get.
Most of the people feel when they have to go to the marriage counselors, it's as if somebody is getting deeper into their marriage. They want to keep their marriage as a private affair. Yes. So where do you draw the line that it is a private affair, or now it needs help?
No, we always need help, because we are two human beings from different families, different cultures possibly. And you always need advice. You won't always understand each other. We always have small quarrels. And we also need to grow as a husband and wife. You need to get more insight, a profound insight, if you might say, on how marriage works. And there are a couple of things that a marriage counselor can add that will spice up your marriage. And we've seen when ladies go for, you can bear witness, Brother Salim, when, for example, your wife goes for a seminar, an Islamic seminar, where they're taught about their husbands and what they should do. When she comes back, she's a changed woman, at least for a week or something. So that helps a lot. So we always need these kinds of things.
Viewers, you're watching Tough Talk, and tonight we are discussing the issue of homosexualism and lesbianism in the community, and we have been privileged to be joined by Sister Mariam Kibunja and also Engineer Abdulrahman Abdul Ghani to discuss this very controversial topic.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the show, and tonight we are discussing the issue of homosexualism and lesbianism in the society, and we have been joined by Sister Mariam Kibunja and Engineer Abdurrahman Abdulghani. Sister Mariam, most of us, when we are talking about the issue of homosexualism and lesbianism, we want to limit it to the young people. Is it happening to the older society?
Yes, it is. It's happening. And actually the most interesting part is that it even happens in marriage. People get married and you only get to hear about this when things go wrong. And they have come to see a counselor and they're divorcing, then you get to hear so many weird things that the woman will report about. And I remember many years ago, even before I became a Muslim, I remember many years ago there was a topic on radio, and they were talking about a group that was in Nairobi that was calling itself Married But Gay, meaning that they were gay but at the same time they were married for image purposes and for probably to continue doing their work and doing what they were. But they would meet some place in Westlands. I don't want to mention the place because it was mentioned on radio that time. They would meet some place in Westlands and they had a club where they would whatever. So I'm assuming that it's still something that still goes on in Kenya. And as I said again, this is not just a Muslim problem. It cuts across the board. It is everywhere. It is glaring at us like wildfire. There's one thing I wanted to add in the schools. When I was studying human sexuality in school, we learned that homosexuality, especially in school, in boarding schools, is of three stages. And the first stage is where the older child, the older girl, especially when they're recruiting the Form 1s, where the older girl who is probably in Form 2, Form 3 or Form 4 starts being nice to you. They wash your clothes, they take care of you, they make sure that you've eaten your food. They really take care of you well. Then it gets to the second stage where now they start sending you some little notes, telling you I love you or whatever. And when they get to the third stage is now when they are emotionally involved with each other, that they're even jealous when you speak to another girl in the school. So even as Abdurrahman is saying, even as we speak to children need to understand this, that when they see you another older student starting to be nice and washing your clothes, know that is stage one, that something else is coming and they're not just being nice. And children should be aware right from the word go. And I'm very worried usually about Form 1s. And I've done, I used to do, I've not done it this year, but I do, now to integrate them
Induction.
Now into induction. We do the Form 1 induction and we talk to them about all these things so that it can be able to be stopped at stage 1 before it gets to stage 3.
Most of the time we do understand that matters sexuality are very private.
Very private matters.
So what happens to a person who is engaged in this kind of relationship and they realize that it is not the right kind of relationship and they want to get out of it?
Those ones will go to a counselor. If they are empowered with that knowledge, they will go to a counselor and they'll be able to, the counselor will be able to work with them so that by the end of the sessions, he will have a healthy, productive life and he'll be able to live it. But when these people are brought by society or brought by parents, brought by guardians, you'll be shocked and amazed that the person needing the counseling is the guardian or the parent, because you will have a very hard client to deal with. Because you ask them and they tell you yes, no, just, and they have no problem. They feel like, I was told to come. Then they tell you, I was told to come, I don't know why I was told to come. So when somebody feels that this is not right and probably starts interfering with their conscience, then they'll come to you and you'll be able to deal with them. Most of the times, and I'll tell you this for a fact, especially when I have a man who comes and tells me that, I'm not able to deal with it as a human being. Not because I'm judgmental or because I feel I'm righteous. I'm not able to deal with a man. So what I do, I will refer the man to a male counselor who usually will be able to understand some of the things that I will not be able to understand. And from there, they're able to move on.
Engineer Abdurrahman, there's one of the areas that has really been misused, and that is the people are having a normal sexual relations in marriage, and they have misused the interpretation of the Quran that the women are supposed to be subservient to their husbands, so whatever the husband wants, then it should happen. What is the ruling of Islam on this?
Like I said before, Brother Salim, Islam is very explicit on the most intimate details about our sexual lives, and it puts it puts very clearly what is supposed to happen between husband and wife. And our wives are not our properties. They have a right. They have, they can make decisions about their lives and their sexual lives and everything. So I think to an extent we should, if there's this kind of ignorance, then we should address it, and we should teach this sisters or ladies that they have a right to say no when it comes to that. And this is religious education. So when I think we should integrate such things, we should have such things in IRE or in madrasa at a very when a person is pubescent, and they should know these things.
Well, one of the most important things that I've always seen being done in most campaigns is that when you have a situation, people tend to mention the negatives of that situation so as to scare people away from that kind of situation. For example, when people are talking about HIV and why people need to get out of, sexual relationships and all that, they will talk about the effects of HIV, the way you're going to be sick, the way you're going to have this and that and that. How come when it comes to the issues to do with homosexuality and lesbianism, nobody is talking about the negatives so that at least we can get to scare people away from these things?
Probably it's because the negatives might not glare at us as they do in an HIV patient or client. But let me tell you, the biggest problem we're having with this pandemic is because it affects the most weakest parts of our personality, and that's our sexual parts of our personalities. And that was also the problem we had with HIV, because it affected the weakest part of a human being, which is the sexual personality. That's how it grew the way it did. Because it's done in darkness, it's done in private, it's not anything that is done in broad daylight. So when we are speaking about homosexuality, there needs to be good evidence that this is the negative part. This is what happens when you indulge in this. So it's a topic that needs to be well read, well researched, so that when you speak with statistics, you speak with facts. Otherwise, we will just we'll go on telling our children or telling people that, you see, this is the negative part, and they indulge and they don't see it, and they are like, it's just talk. So we need to actually have facts that the negative part of this, other than just religion, is that, one, you might not be able to, say, enjoy a sexual life once you're married because this is what you're used to, or two, you might never have children, and is that what you want? And what makes it very hard, and I was going to ask Abdurrahman, what makes it very, very hard for this topic even to be discussed, is that the generation that we are dealing with does not think this is a big deal at all.
There's a lot of indifference between
yes.
They don't care about.
Yes.
And the worst thing is that the Christian community, if I might say, are more vocal on addressing these issues than the Muslims. So we have to acknowledge that this is a choice that a person makes. It's not it's a sickness. It's like, it's not natural. It's a choice that somebody makes. For example, you find if you look at the statistics of inmates, you find somebody going to prison as a straight person and coming out as a homosexual. So these are just choices that need to be this indifference exists between the youth because nobody is addressing it.
Absolutely. Yes, I think so too.
Well, Today we have a situation whereby the government has legislated against this kind of behavior, and there are straight rules to talk about if you commit a homosexual act, A, B, C, D will happen to you as per the criminal laws of the country. Do you think that this is enough now that we have already shied away from the religious rulings that are there, and now we have the other secular rulings? Do you think they're enough to control these menace?
You know, if we hide under the banner of the government, then we are neglecting our religion completely. And, you know, constitutions are subject to reforms. And you find that many countries are accepting this, even in Africa. South Africa has accepted this. And we have countries that are more vocal, like Zimbabwe, Uganda, and places like Uganda where they are advocating for capital punishment. There are actually 3 countries in Africa that you get capital punishment if you engage in such acts. So we shouldn't wait for the government to say it for us. We should, as a Muslim community, we have, you know, a clear-cut way of life. So we have to use the Sharia and explain the Sharia and teach the Sharia that this is haram.
The same government, sorry to say, gives them permission. I've seen LGBT people on the streets talking about their rights. So you wonder if they're allowed to, you know, to do this. Then at the same time, now we want to jail them. Then I find there's double standards on the government part.
Sister Mariam, one of the ways that we can control these menace, and it has been looked at into research into, is a change of behavior. Quickly, as we wrap up the show, what do you think are the behavioral changes that we need to undertake as a community, as a society, to make sure that we are able to control these menace?
Let me tell you one of the behavior changes that we should be able to involve ourselves in. First and foremost, one of the reasons why we have an influx of homosexuality in the schools is because of our system of education, where there is not a lot of games. And most of the time, when a child just reads and reads and reads and reads, when they need to release their energies, usually they're released sexually. And that's why you find that people like me who went to school many years ago, we used to do something called cross country, and I really used to hate it. And you would run and run and run. And this is for you. This was a way of relieving off the energies that are going to be in you. One of the things that I would ask the Muslim communities to do is to stop making the mosques just a place where there's only prayers are conducted. Let's have places where children can come and do basketball. Let's have places where children can come and play football. Let's have places where children can come and swim, so that these energies are relieved, are released in other areas. Because once these are not released and these children are in schools, and most of our boarding schools are same-sex schools, children tend to release those energies in the person that is just right next to them.
Well, Engineer Abdurrahman, your closing thoughts on the issue of homosexuality and lesbianism in the community?
Homosexuality and lesbianism, as bizarre as they are, have to be addressed. That's the point we're going to come back to again and again. And I'd like to concur with my sister that we should have recreational facilities. Some mosques in the West and in South Africa and in the Arab states have started to adopt this, and they have a recreational facility where children can play. And if you keep your children busy, then they won't have time to think about these things or engage in these kinds of activities. So I think more platforms should be introduced where this is spoken about. A message to the imams and the people who are doing the khutbahs. I think this is a very important issue that should be addressed, a contemporary issue. If you're not talking about it, then other avenues are talking about it, the TVs, like we said. So instead of our Muslim children learning about these things and later finding out when they are too deep inside, later finding out that they are wrong, we should start by educating them.
Sister Mariam, your closing thoughts on the issue of homosexuality and lesbianism?
I agree with Abdurrahman. This is a topic that needs to be addressed. Conversations need to start right from the homes to the members. Can we address this issue because it is an issue that is not sparing our children. And I think addressing the issues and creating platforms where these topics can be discussed without being shy, and knowing that it's for the betterment of our children, so that we can have the best versions of our children tomorrow, needs to start right from our doorsteps.
Viewers, thereby you've heard it all. We need to start the conversation, and we need to start it today. We need to start talking about the sexuality of our children, and we need to start closely monitoring how our children are behaving, what is happening to their sexuality, because we have a whole generation at risk from homosexualism and lesbianism. And it is incumbent upon all of us as a community to make sure that we uphold our rightful values, Islamic values, to make sure that we contain this menace. Thank you.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.